So, how much is Xiaomi like Leica? I guess there's only one way to find out and compare it to a proper Leica, the Leica T. Let's find out how these stack up against each other. But first off, let's dive into the specifications of them. So we have two sides here. We have a Leica T, which is beautifully built, almost fully out of metal, carved out of a metal block with stunning details. That comes with an APS-C sensor, a 3.7 inch touch display, a 16 megapixel resolution, and it was released all the way back in 2014. And yes, it does support Full HD video recording as well, but today's focus is purely comparing stills between it and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. That comes with a 1-inch main sensor with a variable f-stop of 1.6 to 4.0, and it's a 23mm equivalent. We then have a 50 megapixel telephoto which has an f-stop of 1.8 and a 1/2.5 1-inch sensor size and 75mm equivalent. We also have a 50 megapixel periscope with an f-stop of 2.5 and a 1/2.5 1-inch sensor size yet again, and it is 120mm equivalent. And naturally we have a 50 megapixel ultra wide with an f-stop of 1.8, again a 1/2.5 1-inch sensor size and 12mm equivalent. Now for this comparison I'm using the Sigma lens on of course the Leica T, which is an 18 to 50mm lens, and it's a consistent f-stop of 2.8. Note though, the cap that I put on was somewhat misplaced because you really need to put some force on it where it feels like you're about to break it. So you will see some black corners on the 18mm focal length. Now with this comparison I will say this isn't going to be too much focus on the difference in terms of quality. Naturally the Leica will win here, and while there will be some focus on it, the main focus here and the target of this video is to see how well Xiaomi has implemented this Leica collaboration. See how close they get to that essence of the shot itself on this Xiaomi Leica versus a proper Leica, the Leica T. Because Leica photos have this kind of special vibe, it's hard to describe, but it feels real-like. The camera just gets what you're seeing, and the colors are more natural but pop in a way that is unique as well. And the details have this kind of softness and depth to it that makes everything look alive. It's like you're capturing moments in the way that it feels more personal and more intimate. Like the camera's almost telling a story with every single shot. And that's what I'm looking for. It's not about the sharpness or perfect exposure. It's about the feeling that the photo gives you, like it has a soul. And one thing that always comes to mind for me is black and white and the way that Leica handles that contrast. So let's start there. Now, do keep in mind, we're working with different aspect ratios between the Leica T and of course the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, and the Leica T is set at 16 megapixels. We will be doing some RAWs, but they will be quite short in terms of that comparison. This video again is mainly aiming at seeing how well Xiaomi has done when it comes to that feel, that essence of Leica that I'm looking for. Now I want to start with this shot. Yes, composition isn't perfectly the same, but there's a reason that I want to start here. I often get the question, how do I approach my shot? Give me some basic tips. Now here for instance, the philosophy behind the shot itself is that the moon reflects night, but also the street light itself. When you think of those two things, especially of course when the light is on, you think about night, you think about low light. So the target was to capture both in one shot, and it really works well in this black and white shot where of course we have a setting sun, while both being on the opposite side of each other. And it works even better in a vertical shot like this taken on the Leica T. Now back to the shot, and straight away you can tell that Leica feeling without a doubt is there. Yes, the Leica is a bit more contrasty, but also the much clearer shot in comparison. You can see for instance a slight halo effect around the light itself on the Xiaomi, but when it comes to the essence of the shot and the feel, it nailed it on the Xiaomi. And no, black and white isn't just a filter that you apply and you get that same feel. There's more to it. Now naturally some of my black and white photography is about simplicity and just capturing the contrast of the shot itself. But we are dealing with of course a phone sensor versus an APS-C. And with the lens that I have on this Leica T, I have an f-stop of 2.8 from 18mm up to 50mm. So do understand that there will be more depth in the Leica T. And you can see what that means here in terms of difference. See the lines on the Xiaomi Leica versus the Leica T. There's a natural blur on the Leica T, really putting emphasis on the plane itself, giving your eyes a point to focus on. That being said, I also kinda like what Xiaomi does here, without that depth in there. Now, normally I don't do much street photography, but Leica has a way of capturing natural pictures with telling a story behind it, which is really hard to explain, but here's a really good shot for both of them. Yes, the Leica T with the high contrast with black and white photography, which is something that I'm using on both. The high contrast black and white is more contrasty with much nicer darker shadows, but I still think that the Xiaomi does really well, and technically you can edit that darker shadow and get really close to what the Leica T does here. When depth isn't really a factor and you look at the whole image without looking at the details of the image itself, I think Xiaomi does a really good job here in capturing that essence that I'm looking for when it comes to the Leica. Here, yes, exposure I could change and get somewhat of the same result, but with the Xiaomi I'm shooting auto just to showcase what the result would be like, unlike Pro where I have full control over it. You can see the difference. Again, I'm perfectly fine with having what people would call flaws. The Leica T has some bright spots on it, but that is what makes me love it. The shadows because of it stand out more, and it really emphasizes on the shot itself. It gives this little bit of an old school feeling to it. The Xiaomi did well here, but it does have a bit more balance compared to what we get on the Leica T, because that's the natural photography approach on the mobile phone. And of course we see a bit of a halo effect around the roof itself on the Xiaomi as well. Now with this bull shot, I love it on the Leica T. It creates this hazy effect, giving a stunning contrast to the shot itself and making the bull stand out a lot more. Where if you look at the Xiaomi Leica, you see the difference with mobile photography. Look at the sun, it clearly has the better dynamic range, but because it removes that look that I love on the Leica T shot here, it also makes the bull blend more with the shutter itself in comparison to what I get with the Leica T shot. I get people will say, yeah, but look at that dynamic range though. If you love the feeling in the shot, or wanting a perfect dynamic range shot where it becomes unnatural can harm the image for me. So put your Google phone away for a second and look at it from a perspective of photography without looking at it from a technical aspect of it. Now in most black and white shots, the balance on the Xiaomi is really similar to what you get on the Leica T. Yes, quality wise the Leica T will blow it away. Look past it though, look at the essence of the shot itself that you are seeing on both of these shots and how well Xiaomi captures it. It's just that Xiaomi needs to do a little bit more with the contrast itself, allowing those shadows to be really deep like I'm seeing here with of course the Leica T. And if you look at the whole shot itself, you can see a clear inspiration of Leica on this Xiaomi. So in terms of that, it explains why I love what Xiaomi does when it comes to the photography side of it, and why I bought this Leica T, which I will be covering on my new channel separately. Link below. Either way, let's look at some shots close up to see the detail difference between both of them, and after that we'll get some colored shots out there as well to showcase the difference between both of them when using of course natural. So we're back, and this time we're gonna compare of course the colors itself and see how they compare to each other. Both are using natural Leica, and compared to the black and white, depending on the shot itself, the similarity somewhat stops here. Phones simply have the tendency to add a bit more saturation to the shot. Though granted, at this time, yes, the color of the sky is better reflected on the shot of the Xiaomi. But in a way, the Leica T handles the contrast better compared to the Xiaomi, giving a lot more depth and life to the shot itself. Now going inside the Church of Arnhem, you will see straight away something. The Leica T has a lot more warmer tones compared to the Xiaomi, and warmth is something that Xiaomi can struggle with. The balance of it is a little bit harder for it. With adding contrast to the Leica T, it also adds a better separation of the subject itself and therefore adds more depth to the shot itself. And that has nothing to do with the sensor size, it's just the way that it handles the colors. And in this shot, the much larger sensor combined with the consistent f-stop all over the lens itself really comes to play. Xiaomi does an amazing job with the colors, but it lacks that natural depth of field compared to it. It just makes the Leica T have such a good focus on the light itself, and it's stunning at that shot. Now again though, what comes to play just like black and white shots is the contrast, and the difference can be substantial. The Leica T just has a lot more of it, and it really comes close to reflecting what I'm actually seeing. Deep dark shadows. Sure, it's still more than it is in reality, but because of those darker shadows, it just gives that shot so much more of that setting sun effect compared to what I get on the Xiaomi, which while being different than a lot of smartphone brands out there, allowing some actually darker shadows to exist, it can still have a bit too much of that brightness in the shadows itself. And of course there's a bit of difference in colors as well. And realistically, when comparing both of these in these kinds of settings with of course Leica Natural, the Xiaomi just has a lot more of that smartphone side to it, especially if you compare it to a proper camera like this. It can come close in colors like shown before, and surely if you go to Pro mode you get a lot more similar shots as well, but when it comes to colors it's the biggest gap that I've seen between these two, where black and white honestly came really close in the essence of what you get with a Leica shot. Don't get me wrong though, when it comes to this comparison, we are simply dealing with limits that we have on the Xiaomi. It doesn't have as large of a sensor, but also of course we are talking about mobile photography. Mobile photography has a very different approach. It has this computational photography and of course AI recently as well. This makes a difference in terms of results that you're getting. But with that being said, when it comes to smartphone photography, Xiaomi does really seem to understand a lot better than a lot of other brands what photography is about. And it isn't about getting that perfect shot with perfect exposures, perfect dynamic range. And I think there, Xiaomi does really well, and Leica helped elevate Xiaomi's photography. Now, I will show some more results and differences between the two, and of course then dive into the raw comparison between these two as well, to showcase that difference in terms of quality as well. Do keep in mind, when it comes to the Xiaomi, I used auto mode just to showcase how Xiaomi approaches it. In RAW, however, naturally, I'm not using auto mode, I'm using of course Pro mode. So let's compare some raw shots between the Leica T and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. The Xiaomi is on the right, the Leica T is on the left. Now when it comes to this shot, I will say composition is a little bit different. I thought I had the same raw shot on the Xiaomi, but clearly I don't. But I just wanted to showcase the difference because there is something quite impressive about the Xiaomi. So looking at these details, for instance, you can see how much more details the Xiaomi retains at this small section. Don't forget, we are dealing with a much larger sensor on the Leica T compared to what we get on the Xiaomi. But these small intricate details are definitely better visible on the Xiaomi. That being said, the Leica T definitely looks cleaner, it has a little bit less noise overall as well. Now zooming out a little bit and just getting a different section of it, like for instance right here, you can see that same story again, where it retains a lot of detail on the Xiaomi. Yes, noise is more introduced, but overall I think Xiaomi does really well when it comes to daytime shots as well. Now I will say though, when it comes to the Leica T, we also have a little bit more of these pixels showing compared to what we get on the Xiaomi, especially visible on this pipe here itself. Now we're inside the church, and again I really want to showcase the difference what a sensor size can do. Now when it comes to this part, of course I will say a little bit overexposure, and that's down to me. And of course again a difference in warmth between both of these shots. Now let's zoom in a little bit on both of them, and you can see, for instance, on the Leica T, we have far less noise compared to what we get on the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi has quite a bit more of it. Let's go a little bit closer so I can make it a little bit more easy visible. You can see quite a bit more noise on the Xiaomi, as well as these lines right here on the wall itself showcase the difference. Depth is definitely more visible on the Leica T in comparison to what we get with the Xiaomi. With the Xiaomi it blends in more, and therefore you almost miss the line that is right here. That being said, if we look at this brick section, I think Xiaomi does really well, and both of them are quite excellent, but it's just a difference that the sensor size will make when it comes to these kinds of comparisons. If we look at this small section, for instance, it does really affect the shot on the Xiaomi because of the noise itself that we have on these small details. The details are less visible on the Xiaomi compared to what we get on the Leica T. Now also inside the church itself, these are not denoised, so I didn't do anything here when it comes to this shot. One thing that I straight away want to address when it comes to mobile photography and the difference here is, for instance, this kind of particular shot itself. Let's get a little bit better focus on the light itself, like so. You can see, for instance, with the Leica T that there's a light right below these panels. You can see the effect that it has, and then it reflects that color of the material that is used to reflect the light itself. With the Xiaomi, and a lot of phones will do precisely the same, you get this balance of light itself, which is just not the reality of it. I really like what Leica does here with the Leica T. I don't like what we get on mobile photography, where they try to balance out the light source itself. Definitely that's something that needs work, because with the Leica T I actually get what I'm seeing when it comes to that light effect, because of the brightness of the light itself and then reflecting on the material and creating this yellow hue around it. Really well done on the Leica T. In general, I would say that the Xiaomi does quite well, but there are definitely parts where you can see we're dealing with a smartphone versus a proper camera. Now I will say though, if you look at like small sections, you can have moments where you feel like the Xiaomi does really well. Look at this, for instance. By default, without denoising both of these shots, of course, the Leica T is a bit more noisy compared to what we get on the Xiaomi. Now of course the Xiaomi will have some smoothing going on and some denoising by default because it's a mobile phone, but just in general I will say, when it comes to that, well done Xiaomi. So at the end, when comparing of course a proper camera versus a phone, there are going to be some differences. This has a 1-inch sensor for the main sensor and a 1/2.5 1-inch sensor for the supporting sensors. And this of course has an APS-C sensor with the lens that I have with it being 18 to 50 millimeters, and of course a consistent f-stop of 2.8. Now, when it comes to the view itself, that is something that we can actually have a conversation about, because simply put, detail it's going to lose when it comes to this kind of comparison, because the Xiaomi simply has hardware limitations that of course the Leica T doesn't have, especially compared to a phone. But like I said at the beginning of this video, I don't want this to be about the details itself. I don't want it to be about the depth information itself. I want it to be about how they approach the photography. When it comes to black and white, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra gets really close to what you are getting on the Leica T. Again, sure, this will have more details, but it gets really close. It just needs to bump up that contrast a little bit and you get there, and that's something you can easily do. And black and white is not simply just a filter that you can apply. I feel like these are really comparable, apart again from the details and of course depth of field that you naturally get more on the Leica T. But when it comes to colors, I will say there's quite a bit of a difference. Xiaomi struggles a little bit with, of course, warmer tones, and I stated that as well. And in my reviews as well, I said that Xiaomi struggles with that, especially in low light. It really has some troubles there. But when it comes to the colors, yeah, definitely, I think that the Xiaomi still needs a little bit of work to get what we get on a Leica. That being said, of course, I'm using auto mostly on the Xiaomi to showcase what Xiaomi does in auto mode versus what we get on, of course, the Leica T, where I, of course, use a pro mode because it's just manual photography. But when it comes to colors, there again, it just needs a little bit of work. At the end though, I love this thing, and I'm gonna do a separate video on it showcasing just the Leica T on my new channel. I will put a link in the description where you can check that one out. And I'm really curious to see what it will do in a lot of different situations, because of course this is just one situation, my city and one day, and comparing it with the Xiaomi. but I'm very curious to see how it does at, for instance, the Open Air Museum, at different nature locations, and especially during summer itself, to see what the approach is like on this Leica T. Either way, what do you think about this video? What do you think about Xiaomi and the approach itself, and how close do you think it gets in terms of that feel that you're looking for in the shot itself, that I think Xiaomi still does best by quite a distance? Let me know in the comments below. Now, before we end this video, I really want to thank my members. Thank you so much for, of course, supporting my channel. You can click join somewhere below or next to my subscribe button as well. To become a member, you don't have to, but you of course can. I will put the raw files of the Leica T and of course the Xiaomi on a drive for those members. And of course, if you aren't subscribed yet, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps out a channel like mine, especially with stupid financial decisions like this one. Either way, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, of course, don't forget to comment below, watch the video in full. It really helps out a video like this to really get up in the algorithm stuff. Either way, have a good one and talk to you guys in the next.